Hello, all Happiness is Egg-shaped listeners and watchers. This is the Happiness is podcast with me, your host, Bruce Aitchison, brought to you in association with Infinity Blue. They can look after you whether it is a checkup, teeth whitening, or a more complicated procedure. Give them a call, get in touch, and they will look after you to make sure that you keep that smile intact. Because after all, they know, we know, I know, you know, happiness is egg-shaped. Hello and welcome to the Happiness is podcast with me, your host, Bruce Aitchison from Happiness is Egg Shaped. And today I'm joined with an old friend, even though he's not that old. He's journeyed far and wide. I've absolutely loved watching what he's got up to, where he's got up to, and who he's got up to it with. This is a unique story and one that I've been very, very keen to hear about and to help tell. So let's not waste any time and bring in the one and the only, the more handsome than ever man, Andy Cramond. Hello, sir. How are you?
Very well, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. It's good to see you. And you're back in Scotland. You've been away for a bit.
I have indeed. After 9 years stint in France, I've returned to the best city in the world, Edinburgh.
The best city in the world, Edinburgh. Now, you left the best city in the world, and it sounds like, if you believe some of the stories that we've heard, it sounds like
Yeah,
it was all by chance and you didn't really think that it was a true story.
yeah. Well, that's quite right. Yeah, back to it was during the under 20s. I suppose it was actually my first year of 20s when I went out to France for the 2013 World Cup, and I got a text message from a random number saying it's an agent. What are you up to next year? And I just presumed it was a joke from my roommate Adam Ash, so I just ignored it. And then I actually got injured, and then I had to go home early. So then only once I got back to Scotland, I actually Googled the number, and it was associated to the agent that he claimed to be. So I texted him back, but then that was too late. He didn't want to speak to me as I was injured goods, damaged goods. And then the following year, um, just again, no expectation of becoming a professional rugby player, and performed, I suppose, well enough during the 20s campaigns, and then got picked up and out to France.
You're a really humble guy. You say there was no expectation to becoming a professional player. You must at some point, been involved in Scottish age groups, thought this is maybe a gig I could get.
Well, I suppose there was. So I was at uni up in Aberdeen playing for Grammar. Um, so I started my second year. That's 2013-14 season, uni year, and then I got to Christmas time, and then so the 20 stuff was ramping up, and I did make the decision to leave uni, hoping that if I do give it a good effort, I'd probably have a reasonable chance of maybe picking something up at Edinburgh, Glasgow. That was kind of the plan. And then there was a few opportunities in France arose at the same time, and jumped upon one in particular. Yeah.
So that's not really a route then that you would have guessed up, because being in Scotland, you're thinking, I've got one or two options. I either go to Glasgow or I'm in Edinburgh.
Yeah.
So the competition, because Scottish rugby is
Yeah.
a village, you know that there's that number of second rows, there's that guy in the age group above you and those guys that are already signed.
Yeah.
So was that part of the modesty, I suppose, about it?
I don't think so. I think just as I say, this agent sort of contacted me during the Six Nations of 2014, saying I think there was 4 or 5 French clubs interested. I think because Snoops was our backs coach under 20, so I'm not sure what sort of timings were, but there must have been a bit of chat about Glasgow, and there potentially been an offer from Glasgow, and then the French clubs, the French teams came out, and then one of them was Toulon. So talking of players around in positions, second rows, up and down. Well, Backy's both and Ali Williams were there, so so I couldn't pick. I couldn't have actually chosen any harder competition, I suppose. But no, it was obviously the opportunity to go and learn from those guys. They were in the last couple of years of their careers, and I was hoping to go out and learn as much as I could from them.
Right. So you've jumped in there, and I need to go with that. So
Yeah,
somebody says, right, there's a gig at Toulon.
yeah,
You're a lock. You're looking at it going, Backy Spota. I mean,
yeah,
unbelievable. And Ali Williams, one of the best. Some people would look at that and go, I'm not going because I won't get a game.
yeah.
You
Yeah, I
looked
don't
at it and
think I've.
thought, I get to learn.
Well, I suppose actually, again, it comes back to maybe being too humble, or I don't know, not. I don't know what but it was probably a case of I wasn't really expecting to make it, so it was just a case of I'll go out, have a bit of a jolly at Toulon, and then if it doesn't work out, at least I do remember that I signed a 2-year contract, and I remember thinking, if it doesn't work out, at least I've learnt French and I'll have some new friends, and I'll come back to Edinburgh and finish off my studies. So yeah, I mean, it worked out all right in the end.
Well, if we were sitting here now and the story was, oh, Toulon offered, but I went somewhere else, you
Yeah,
would always wonder,
exactly,
hang on, I could have
100%.
signed with Toulon.
Like, well, 100%. And that's what I remember all my like school friends. Again, left school sort of never expecting to become a professional rugby player. And then so when I did go out there and sort of and do it, I remember all the boys from school, all football school, Royal High. Well, yeah, traditionally rugby, but when I was there, we struggled for a team. All the football, I'd be like, God, Andy's playing for Real Madrid of rugby. So exactly, imagine someone, a footballer, turned around and had a chance to Real Madrid and turned that down. So no, you're quite right. I think if I hadn't done that, I would have regretted it. But
So here's Andy. You've never been wee Andy Cramond, but you're walking in to Toulon as Andy Cramond, Scotland under-20 international, ex Aberdeen Grammar, Royal High, to sit down next to Ali Williams and Backy Spota and the queue of other household names.
Yeah.
Do you go in shoulders back, chest out, hi, I'm Andy Cramond, or do you wait to be spoken to? How does that work? Because if you'd walked into Murrayfield or Scotston, you would have known
you've known some of the guys.
At least half of the people that were there.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I think my first morning there, I think there was a lady who used to drive the bus around for the academy guys. So she came and picked me up in the morning, took me down to training centre, and I walked in, and I think it was Ali Williams, Chris Massoi, and Carl Heyman were having breakfast at a table. So I think I did just pull up they probably invited me to join them. I'm sure they did. So no, I never felt too sort of intimidated, actually, to be honest. And then I would sometimes look at some of the other academy guys and be like frustrated with them not actually being really sort of timid and sort of not speaking. And there were certain times when also often sort of considered, I would always get, if I buggered up in training, I'd get shouted at by this guy. We're moving on from day one, but it was if the senior guys would shout at me if I fucked up in training, whereas, and I would always play this sort of situation in my head, whereas what would happen if I shouted at them for fucking up? And there was one time in particular when it was Juan Fernandez Lobe, so Argentinian lineout coach. I remember I must have missed a lift on him in a pre-season game against Stade Francais, and then obviously bollocked me. And then the line out after, I'd read the line out against, I was going to go up and steal it from Parisi, and he never fucking lifted me. So then I'm not sure if he was just getting me back, but I felt, well, obviously I didn't say anything to him, but I was like, I'm thinking back, I was like, I should have fucking gone through him, but that was my time to shine, and you took it from me.
I love that I was going to take it off Parisi, but Fernandez Lobby didn't lift me. You could just throw these names around. But is that intimidating, or were you just, they're my teammates, that's who I'm playing, it's just like it was in that game I played at Grammar at Lewis Law? Is that just how it was?
Yeah, I think I was. No, it obviously was sort of intimidating, and you'd be nervous. So my first game was I got called up actually quite early. I think it was September or so in my first season. I actually got, I was never expecting to play for the first team. I thought I'm getting a chance to train with them, do pre-season with them, but I'll go and play for the academy. And then I think it was maybe mid-September, however many games were into the season, I got called up to play. And then I remember that got on for the last 10 minutes, and obviously don't fuck up. And then as soon as you make the first tackle, like obviously you just feel it's just a rugby match. You're in the game. Obviously you're surrounded by a lot of talent, which helps and sort of direct you, keep you in the right place. But no, as I say, I've never really felt out of place, thankfully. And I think, I put in some decent performances when I got my chances with the first team as well, which helped.
I'm always intrigued when I speak to foreigners that played in France, because there's this French thing of you play really well at home and you win at home, but for some reason when you go away, it just doesn't happen.
Yeah.
How does that play out as a, does that something you spoke about? Did you and Chris Massoy and Carl Heyman and Ali Williams have a chat about it over breakfast and say, how do we get these boys to realise we can win away from home? Or do you just become part of that culture?
I think you do. Say looking, not that it's ever been discussed, but I suppose me just kind of thinking from their point of view would be that they're used to playing Super Rugby and playing 15 games a year or whatever. And when they come to Europe and they've got 36 games to play, I suppose some of them, again, depending on those guys at the end of their careers, like they kind of welcome a week off when your team's going away to Racing. So I think, I know exactly, and I always thought, oh God, why is it any different for someone, playing home or away? It's just a game of rugby on a rugby pitch, and the crowd get up at you, and okay, that can help, but also that can help motivate like an away team. If the crowd's flying, that helps. That whole atmosphere works both ways. But I suppose, as I will go down my career, I guess those weeks off actually were kind of a way it was to rotate the squad and just keep the first team fresh. And if you can win all your home games, you're going to be in a pretty good position at the end of the season. So if you can win those 15 home games or 13 home games, and you can pick up the odds, maybe half of the away. If you can pick up half of your away games, then you're going to be top of the table. So I suppose it is just a tactical way of rotating the squad and then really going after the games that are winnable.
I've only ever been to one game in France, and it was Perpignan at home, and there was no music after the tries. There was no pre-game entertainment. There was it was just an electric atmosphere. It was like I'd never been up before. I don't know how many people were there, 15, 18,000. So it wasn't a huge stadium, but it felt like 60,000 in a Turkish football stadium. It was and it was relentless. What was that like? How did you feel playing at home? You have that behind you. Is that motivational? Is it intimidating? Is it I can't make a mistake? Did you relish it? How did it feel play? Because crowds in this country, no matter how hard we try, are never going to be like that.
No. Yeah, I think in France, I think the passion for the teams comes from, because it very much is like the teams of, apart from Paris teams, okay, Toulouse, but you still get that same atmosphere at Toulouse. It very much is like the team of the village, so it's like caste, and it really is. And there's lots like spoken about sort of defending the colours of the town, and everybody buying into that. And so I suppose that passion then from like places like Castres and Oyonnax, and not so much Perpignan, because it is probably a bit of a nicer place to live, but there's not an awful lot going on in those towns. So like they really buy into the rugby. If the rugby team are doing well, like Castres, obviously they've performed amazing and probably one of the most consistent teams in the last 10 years. As I say, there's not much else for the supporters to get into, so they really buy into that. And what that does on the pitch for myself, I used to love it. As I sort of alluded to before, I don't think it was necessarily more of a advantage for the home. I wouldn't say so. Like, I enjoyed going away, and the fans going mental. It was just cool to be part of. There's that my debut at Breve, I was on the bench with Dylan Armitage, and I remember that we were in the warm up area on the dead ball, and he was just getting pelted from the fans. But I don't suppose I was ever too. I wasn't ever the target of the opposing fans, so I don't suppose I got anything too personal. But then,
And
like,
how
that's the type of person he would absolutely relish off that. Like, he loves that. That's what he's playing for. Like, he wants that. So I don't know.
my only Dale Armitage story was when I was at Murrayfield for Scotland England, and he
Yeah,
started teasing that Scotland had never even been in England's 22, and at that Ben White scored for Scotland, and he just went from being this cocky to having to shut up and take the stick. But
yeah,
it was class, and those guys, you were still a pup for a lot of that.
yeah,
And
yeah,
I know Stefan Armitage became somebody you got really close to.
yeah.
Do you find that the values of those guys at the top of their game are the same as the guys he played with in club rugby in Scotland?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, again, it surprised me to. I mean, when I first turned up at Toulon, we were training out of portakabins. I think we had in that year. I think there was, you get these like highest paid player lists up here. I think we had 6 of the top 10 at Toulon, and we're changing in portakabins. The physio was in the portakabin. So actually, the facilities at Aberdeen Grammar were better than Toulon. So then with that, comes the sort of the just normal blokes and go out and have beers. Yeah, there was plenty of beers had across my career. And I don't know. I think that's a big part of sort of binding teams together. Obviously, team building and getting to know each other is the beers.
And how did your French develop? Was that something that you being immersed in it came very quickly, or did the international players stick together and enjoy speaking in English?
Yeah, well, I mean, naturally, the sort of English speaking players would group together. It was just easier. At Toulon, because there were so many English speaking guys, there's a team manager called Tom Whitford, who's now with Montpellier. He would translate everything. So there'd be like video sessions. You'd have Bernard Laporte sort of doing his spiel, and then Tom would just instantly translate it, because there was probably half the squad was probably English speaking. So from a sort of 3 years at Toulon, we're mostly training with the first team, and with Tom translating everything, that kind of did affect my French. I was still kind of conversational, especially with a few beers down there. I could have a chin wag with the boys. And then French, obviously, and then rugby jargon came. That was all right. Then when I moved to Van, so after I left Toulon, I went up to Van in the second division, and there I sort of took a bit more of a what was that, 24 or so, but I sort of started running the lineouts and a bit more of a senior player position, and then so I was communicating more with the boys, and the head coach is French, so then I had more of a relationship with him. So my French sort of probably improved a lot, and then sort of after that first year up at Van.
How are you viewed when you move like that from Toulon to Van? How are you viewed? Is it you're coming from that club, you've got lots to offer us? Are people got a target on your back and people are trying to knock you over because you've come from the big time? How did that play
out? No, I think in France it's really quite common for the young guys to come out of these top teams, top academy programs, and common to drop down into that second division to get a bit of experience. It's only now, it's now obviously the French youth players are all that in the 20s program's been producing some serious players in the last few years. But even I think what kind of the catalyst to that was, like when I was playing, Josh Tuasova was playing Espoir rugby, and like he would get the odd game with the first team. He would be, how old was he? He was a year older than me, 20, 21. But you're an Espoir player until you're 23. And there's some sort of thing, if you're an Espoir player, you're not really trusted, or you're not really given a chance. So like, even though he would come on and score 2 tries, he would only get to play. And I think his first 2 years, he only played 5 or 6 games a season before they really trusted him. So there was a real thing about giving young guys game time. There'd be guys get through to the age of 24 as Espoir and then sort of never really played a first team game. Whereas now they've obviously then sort of there has been more young, and that's with the talent. Obviously, when the opportunity comes, they're given a bit more game time in the first teams, which then obviously helps them develop quicker and faster. And then by the time they play under 20s, they've played 20 top 14 games. There's no secret bloody recipe. But what was the actual question?
when you go to Van,
along.
So you've come down a level, but
so,
straight away you're then running the line out. You've got a relationship with the coach.
Yeah,
you're given much more responsibility. You were ready for it, I suppose, having learned
Yeah,
from
I
some
think
of the
so.
best.
I think so. Yeah, so I mean, I learned a lot while I was playing, and then I was playing academy sort of every week, and then the odd occasion I got with the first team, I played well, and it was I sort of took my chance, but again, those chances didn't come sort of, or they came far and few between. And then so when I did drop down that level, obviously a bit of a lower level in the second division. I first turned up. It wasn't instantly into the line-out role, but then the guy that was running the line-outs, I sort of felt as if I could do a better job probably. So I had that discussion with the coach, and then so it was entrusted with it, which then helped my confidence and my skills. Obviously, you need to be making these decisions of line-outs under pressure and in game environments, and at senior rugby, it's different level to the academy stuff. So I think being entrusted with that role really did help. And then with the game time, I think in that first year I played, I think one of the most amount of minutes in the team, which then again is no secret recipe. The more rugby you play, the better you get.
So, when you drop down, are you still that top 14 player? You're just playing, like, were you as fit playing in the second tier as you were in the top tier? Or do you feel like your performances were the same, or is it just how it goes that maybe there's a bit less?
Yeah. Not well. Again, it comes down to the game time. I think. Yeah. I mean, I felt really fit. I actually had that pre-season before I went to Van. I don't know. I think I've spoken about this before, but I was supposed to go from Toulon to Pau. Well, I did go to Pau for the last 6 months of my 3 years at Toulon, and I was supposed to have a contract there. So all promised to me. And whatever happened, that fell through with a week or two before I was supposed to go back for pre-season. So I actually did my pre-season at Gloucester, and then that got So I was when I turned up at Van in September, just after the start of the season, I was as fit as I've ever been. And I sort of took that through that first season, and I was flying. And I mean, it probably dropped off a little bit in the second, third season. Just sort of French culture comes back into probably too many beers, too many baguettes. And no, but I was still performing really well. I mean, my whole career aesthetically, I wasn't the most pleasing on the eye. My love handles, but no, I was fitness level GPSs and things. Like I was always in pre-season. I was always up. I was up at the top. I was just pissed off the conditioning coaches that I didn't look the
part. So there's two stereotypes that we have of rugby in France, and I'll give you them both, but I'll give you them one at a time. The first one is, especially in those lower tiers, there's this feeling that it's really dirty, it's really physical, there's lots of things going on, there's no place for the weak or the soft, that you're found out really quickly. Is that true?
Well, I suppose so. I always remember, I think the Pro League is, for some reason, like branded as the most physical league in the world. But I mean, it's not. Look at the collisions in the top 14, and well, never mind. Even the URC and the Premiership. Like, no, it's not this. I don't know how they define that most physical. I think it's probably the amount of time doing mauling and scrumming, and which isn't the real physicality. It's the big contacts that you see with the top athletes. dirtiness, yeah. Certainly when I first started at Van, there was a few of the old school was still kicking about. And there was one guy in particular, I don't actually know his name, but he played for Colomia. He was the number 4 for Colomia. And he had fair hair and a headband. And I remember once he got sent off for just going up to someone and just smacking him. And then I was getting tagged. So Colomia playing blue as well, so I was playing at Van at the time. And then I was getting tagged all over Twitter by my friends being like, Andy, what the hell have you done? Thinking it was me that just got up and smacked someone. I was like, so I don't know. I wasn't sure which way to play it. Like to be like, oh yeah, I'm the tough guy, or just no, I denied it. I denied it was me. But no, there was certainly that aspect of it. And then even the division below, like Federal 1, or the teams that were around Toulon, in particular, the team called La Seine. And there was always, once a season at least, there was a video would come out of La Seine, and it was a fight would start on the pitch, and then the supporters were all involved. But with cameras nowadays, like, you can't, even now cameras are now, all the games are filmed in the third division. So I don't think, not too much of that naughtiness happens anymore.
Not anymore. The other one is, and maybe you've mentioned it there, is the decisions are made on the whim of an owner or right, you've lost, you're not getting paid tomorrow, or your contract, I've ripped it up, you can go. Is that surely that's an old-fashioned, outdated myth?
Potentially outdated now, yeah. But well, I did have an experience. Well, not personally, but I witnessed. Toulon. Yeah, I think that's one of the famous stories coming out of Toulon with all the owner having a huff. But yeah, Joan Smith. There was once we turned up for training in the morning, like on payday or the day after payday, and he'd only received half his wage. So he just said to the forwards coach, he just got up. The forwards coach didn't speak any English, and Juan didn't speak any French. So he just got up, shouting to the room, saying, "Right, I'm off. I've only been paid half my salary." So and the forwards coach kind of laughing, going, "Where's Juan going? Where's Juan going?" And we were like, "Oh, he's going home. He's not been paid." So then the coach Jacques went through to Murads and obviously told him what was happening, and then we had an afternoon session, and Joan was back in the afternoon. He'd been paid. Which then, yes, again, a sort of, after the fact would be, if that happened to me, if I'd only been paid half my wage and I got up and walked out the video, I wonder what would happen. Would probably been told not to come back.
Yeah, you weren't there in the afternoon. You were allowed to go.
No. Yeah.
So one of my favourite stories about you being in France, and I need to know if this is true because my jealousy level could hit an all-time high. You got to have a bit of a kickabout in France, didn't you? You got to play a bit of football.
Yeah.
Against?
Well, yeah, I know where this is going. Yeah. We played against the 1998 World Cup winning French team, including Zidane, Robert Pires. Unfortunately, Barthez wasn't there.
Right, talk me through how Andy Cramond. Andy Cramond for Edinburgh gets to play against the World Cup winning 1998 French team featuring Zidane, Pires. How did that happen?
Deschamps, yeah. That was just being part of the Real Madrid rugby. I suppose you get opportunities, don't you? No, I think the year before that they'd played Marseille, and Cantona had been playing for Marseille, and then it was part of a children's charity. The name escapes me. It was part of a children's charity that they'd organised these games to raise money, and we've played against that team. I've got Zidane's shorts in my cupboard somewhere. I managed to get a pair of shorts off him. I did ask for his strip, but his strips are being donated to children's charity, so I thought I better let that slide.
You scored though, didn't you?
I did. And I regret not having some mad celebration, some forward roll, and some Tim Cahill style, the Archer. But no, there was, I don't know if it was a corner or just a cross, and then it was headed on, popped up in the air, and a wee volley into the bottom corner. Yeah, my only regret is it wasn't Barthez in goal, because that would have been pretty cool if I said I scored against Barthez. I was a Man U fan.
So how many people were there? What stadium were you in? What like that is
Uh,
incredible.
yeah, no, very very fortunate circumstances. It was just at Mayol at the home ground in Toulon. I don't know how many people, 10,000 or so. It was in pre-season one year. Don't know, it must have just been, I think, on the Friday or something. So maybe the end of the week with a wee run around. Played half football and then half touch. Yeah, we weren't allowed to tackle Zidane.
What were they like at touch? Was there anybody you looked at and thought they could cut this?
No, not really. I don't think they didn't. I mean, yeah, obviously they've got the. Well, I suppose they're all 40, 45, however old, 50. They're all so the athleticism had maybe gone a little bit. The trying to pass the ball was a bit tough.
Yeah,
But
I'll bet.
Zidane, I think we did allow. I think there's a good clip of like Dylan, I think, letting Zidane through to score a try under the posts. I think he got a length of the pitch try.
You would do that for Zidane. That's quite cool.
Exactly. God can do what he wants.
Yeah. So
In that part of France, yeah.
you must have been thinking like you must have been pinching yourself at moments like that.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. Well, I think go back to that. I think I've said this before. It's there's stories of I think at Montpellier, was it, when Jim Hamilton I think he tells it when he turned up and the president looked at me and said, "Who the fuck are you?" He thought he had signed Richie Gray. And then Richie Gray was playing really off Scotland at the time, and he thought he was signing the big lock from Scotland. But yeah, I mean, a similar, yeah, sort of. You felt as if surely they didn't want. Why have they signed me? Like, what, surely I'm not supposed to be here. I'm going to get found out soon enough. But no. As I say, I'm bad for that. I mean, I did. I was good. Yeah, I played well enough. I was obviously, I earned my place there, and I shouldn't put myself down so much.
So when you were playing in France, you playing well, feeling fit. What was the ambition? Were you just dealing with the next job, or was there there's what I would like to do. I want to win that trophy. I want to go and play
Yeah,
there. International honours must have come into your head at some
yeah,
point.
yeah. Of course. So yeah, when I was playing, I mean, I played that first year at Van, and I think I was in like team of the year, and then so kind of from then I was like, right, I need to get back to the top 14. And then there was every year there's chat, and then also I can't remember what orders they came in, but between Edinburgh and Glasgow there was sort of each year there was some chat and something was going to happen, and things didn't work out and couldn't come to an agreement, and then I find kind of that, as you say, it was I either. And then, I mean, going through all of this and what was part of decisions was sort of my head, and I was sort of did struggle with concussions throughout my career. So I was always kind of aware that I wasn't going to be playing until I was 35. So when we look back at, we look back to what we were saying before and saying I would have always regretted the opportunity of going. I would have always regretted not going to Toulon. I did want to come back to Edinburgh, Glasgow, and sort of give it a final shot of getting a Scotland cap. And sort of with the thought of being, I don't want to stop and sort of look back and not have given it a go, not have given it my best shot. And we were pretty close to that happening whenever that was after COVID. But yeah, again, just sort of things fizzled out, and then I was being pressured by Biarritz. I think I was having to wait for Edinburgh, and then I think I was being pushed by Biarritz for an answer, so I ended up having to just sort of sign at Biarritz. And then the goal, in terms of my head, it was right, once I get back to top 14, or if I play for Scotland, then I can kind of then probably retire in a bit of peace. So yeah, I managed to get back up to top 14, and then unfortunately, I played sort of 5 games that season, and then was sort of told to stop by the doctors.
So we'll come back to that a bit, but how does it work? I'm always intrigued when players talk the way you've spoken about there, that we spoke to them, it didn't quite work. How how does it work? Are you speaking? Is your agent speaking on your behalf? Are you going together? Is it done? At that time, I'm imagining Zoom and phone calls and
Yeah,
emails. How does it actually work to somebody like me that's never been involved in it, and people that are
yeah.
listening or watching? What is that process?
Yeah, I mean, it's done through the agents. My agent was Jamie Noon throughout sort of most of my career, ex-England player, and yeah, most of the chats are done through him. The odd time you'd get, if you had a relationship with coaches, you would get sort of a personal phone call. That happened a couple of times from guys I'd played. Well, when I went to Pole, it was Carl Heyman that gave me a call just directly, and or there would be kind of workarounds where I forget his name, Richard Cockrell's right hand man, whatever his name was. Um, he was good mates with one of the guys I was playing with at Van, so he was obviously able to speak to Dan about me and sort of get some references, and then there was a bit of chat through that. But then ultimately, it does then come back through the agent, and it's up to him to then negotiate sort of on my behalf and lay out the options I've got, and then ultimately it is my decision to sort of which way go if these all these options are still on the table. As I say, it sort of came down. Edinburgh asked me to wait a little bit longer, but I needed to sort of sort myself out. I had to give an answer to Biarritz. So unfortunately, yeah, that never quite happened.
You do it because you loved it. Did it feel like a job at points where you thought, where's my next wage coming from, or were you just still riding a bit of a wave?
Yeah, obviously, very fortunate to be playing rugby for a living. But by the end, yeah, with my head as a consideration as well, and sort of what that looks like going forwards. That came into, and yeah, okay, I was getting paid well to do something that I love doing. I would be doing anyway, but then with the concussion stuff, it was ultimately just, well, it doesn't really matter about the money. It's I just need to look after my health, and that was the final decision, which made me stop. Is I need to look forward and for the rest of my life. It's only a small part of my life. This 10-year period. I was enjoying it. Yeah, I was enjoying it. But as I say, I think my last game was against Leon in the top 14. And I remember going into that game not really wanting to be there because I already knew that I was one game away from the doctor had told me if I have one more, like he'd call it. So I suppose it's always that when you're trying to avoid an injury, you never fully committed, and that's when you're most likely to get injured. So I suppose by the end, like in training, if we'd ever be doing sort of contact drills, I was not interested. I wasn't going to put my head into something, risk getting my last one in training, and then that ultimately sort of transferred into games, and I probably wasn't as fully committed as I should have been or could have been, and yeah, well, called it a day. I was forced to call it a day, but I did agree with that decision. Yeah.
I can't imagine what that's like, having to make that decision. Is that? Did you speak to 5 or 6 people that are close to you, and they all said yeah, or were you just clear in your own mind? This is me. It's my decision. It's my life. It's my career. I'm going to make this call.
Yeah, I mean, as I said before, sort of, I knew I was never going to be playing to 35. I knew it was a matter of time. And yeah, I mean that it was tough in that last game. I think the game before we had played Toulouse, and the week before, and there was a couple of times when I was thinking, right, have I had a knock there? Should I go off? I didn't, kind of knowing that would have been in my career, and I kind of pushed that. And then, as I say, this following week against Leon, turning up at the game, I remember opening the door to walk into the tunnel, and I just remember kind of thinking, like, I don't want to be here. So when after about 20 minutes, I got big Roman Telfafuna's head on head. I went down, and the doctor came over, and I then was like, that's me. Walked off. Obviously, there was a few tears in the changing room. But yeah, ultimately it was kind of my decision. The doctors, it was a funny one because I kind of knew then, I'd already been told by the doctor, right, if you have one more, you're done. But then it was kind of a delayed process, which probably made things a bit harder. I had to I'd go through quite a few sort of hoops and go through a few steps to then actually get officially sort of told that I was retired, that I was having to retire. Whereas I knew deep down, like I'd already kind of made that decision, I suppose. And then I needed a doctor to actually just say definitively, right, you are stopped. Because then that just took all sort of doubt out of my head. There was a bit of chat to suggest, oh, there's a possibility you could, go do some tests, and there's a possibility you could get back, which then kind of gave me a bit of hope, dangle the wee carrot. But then I also, because I saw multiple doctors, so that one of them was giving me this wee carrot, and then at first I sort of jumped on that, and I was like, all right, maybe I can get back. And then ultimately, I think that actually was causing me sort of like, I was becoming like anxious about that, and like anxious about sort of going back out on the pitch and getting more concussions. And so in the end, I just needed that sort of definitive answer to be like, right, you're done, time to move on. And then people say, do you miss rugby? And I'm like, yeah, I do. I miss the times, I miss the coffees, and I miss the banter. And but yeah, I know I didn't have an option but to stop it for my future and for the health. And so yeah, I don't know.
I suppose there comes a point where if you're trying too hard to justify it, it's probably the right decision.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
And just one final point on this: have you had much chat to Carl Heyman around this topic?
I know I've not actually. I know I don't really know why I've not reached out to him. I don't. I think I'm just kind of hoping I've stopped early enough compared to those guys of that sort of generation. So yeah, that's probably another fear that I don't really want to speak to those guys about it all. But yeah, I mean, I know their stories. I remember him sort of talking about, I've seen the stuff that's going around. So as I say, I think I have, and hopefully I've just stopped early enough that don't need to go there.
But you look back, I mean, I've watched from afar. I've known you for not quite 10 years,
since
maybe.
I was at school. Well, no, I think probably. I think when you were at Murrayfield, I was playing at Royal High. You were coaching Murrayfield.
So maybe it is. So I've known you for a long time, and I always loved, as I said in the intro, I just loved watching it from afar, and that feeling of you going out and doing something that was outside the norm of go through an academy, get a contract to earn some cash. I loved that, watching you away, and then every now and then I'd get there'd be a video of you, or I'd see a picture of you doing something, and there was a massive amount of pride that you were doing that. Can you look back now with pride, or is it still too close? Are you going to give yourself some time before you start saying, actually, that was quite cool?
Yeah, no, of course, yeah, I do. Yeah, I don't need to remind myself. I do remind myself. I know that I was very fortunate in sort of the path I went. It was different, and I know a lot of the guys that stay in Scottish rugby sort of probably look at me or look back at me and sort of say, "What we maybe should have done that." Kind of. But then also, what we kind of alluded to, in hindsight, I don't know. I did miss out on that cap. I'll look at some of the guys that have sort of played, and I might feel as if I could have got a couple of caps at least. But then also, remind myself again that I've had an amazing 9 years in France and had experiences that nobody else had, and a house down in Biarritz, and I mean, if I'd gone to Glasgow, well, I remember that was one day. Yeah, this kind of probably peaks it. This probably tops it all off. One day when I was out on a yacht in Saint Tropez, we'd seen Ronaldo on the port, and I were out on the yacht going to. And then I remember saying, I think I said to some of the boys, it was with some of the Aussie guys, and I remember saying, I was like, I could have been a boat in the Clyde here. Whereas I'm on a yacht in the Mediterranean off Saint Tropez. So I suppose that probably sums up the decision quite well.
Yeah, I can imagine a few people willing that. Did your mate Ashy give you a shout to go and join him in LA? Was there ever the thought of, I could do a bit in America or a bit in Japan, or I could...
Well, yeah, certainly, as I say, sort of when the head knock stuff sort of started coming into decisions at the end of my career, I never really explored it. I'd spoken to one agent who was based out of Australia, had a lot of players in Japan, and he said I would have no bother getting a contract. They're always looking for second rows. And I did think that just sort of the contact was probably lesser in Japan, but we never quite got to that point. I never got through my last contract, so maybe at the end, if I'd lasted to the end of that contract, I might have tried to get out to Japan, and I would have loved to go to America, but yeah, unfortunately, that didn't happen.
Yeah, Ash will have a few stories to tell you. I've no doubt.
No, exactly.
When you talk about you missing the coffees, missing the thing I miss, and didn't give up for the reasons you get, but when I stopped playing, the thing I miss more than ever, and I've been a coach for a long time, but you're never a player, is the changing room. And before, I know clubs now have their social media guy in the corner taking videos of them and all that kind of stuff. But the changing room, when there's no cameras, it's just the team, the coaches, maybe the medical, but it's a closed environment. It's just yours. How precious was that to you?
No, that is special, and I suppose you kind of take it for granted. While you're in there. So looking back, it is strange to sort of think that is somewhere you'll never be again. Well, that's when I say the coffee, I kind of mean that. I kind of mean that whole just being with the boys, no matter if it's in the cafe or if it's in before a pre-match in a game or the celebrations after the game, which are amazing experiences that, as you say, nobody else can say they've experienced. I'll miss it, but no, not too much. I can move on.
If a kid came to you, you're now back in Edinburgh, a young player comes to you and said, you went away. What do you think I should do? What sort of advice would you give somebody now, an 18, 19, 20-year-old who's, maybe decided opportunities in Scotland are not going to offer themselves up to them? What sort of advice would you give a young player?
Yeah. No, I certainly advise them to go away to a foreign country, and that doesn't have to be France. It's France or Italy or Japan or America, and it's not New Zealand. Yeah, go to bloody New Zealand. That's probably the best piece of advice I'd say. And because at 20, you're still young. Like, although we're seeing guys breaking through at 18, 19 now, like 20, you're still bloody young. So if you can go to New Zealand and learn from the best and improve your rugby, then I'd certainly do that. And it's the experiences outside of rugby. What's the All Blacks saying? It's a better men make better All Blacks or something. So it's certainly that piece of advice would be just go and try and grow as a person. And the advantage of going to France or Italy or Spain, is learning that second language was a huge life skill. So I'd definitely recommend young guys getting away, learning a new, different environment, different culture.
We've mentioned you're humble, you're reasonably relaxed. You've played down a lot of these things that have happened. Was there points where you were really uncomfortable because you've taken yourself to an environment that you didn't know anything about?
No.
With people, although you'd seen on TV, even that brings its own, intimidation. It's a foreign country. It's a different language. Sometimes I go on holiday and I feel like I'm being taken advantage of because I don't understand what's going on. You were a kid.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I think I just rolled with the punches and just bounced about and got on with it. I remember my first night in my flat. I got dropped off by Jamie. Not by Jamie, it was my previous agent. But I got dropped off and the flat was literally empty. There was no duvet or pillows or anything. I remember thinking, what the F am I doing here? Like, take me home. Didn't have any Wi-Fi, no friends. That was probably, sort of my lowest. And then I moved on from there. Yeah, there was a few challenges throughout, peaks and troughs. But no, I never really felt too uncomfortable. And I think that's kind of just the way I am. Yeah, I like to go out and meet new people and talk to new people, and which is why I'm sort of doing what I'm doing now. Is it's about just chatting to people and meeting new people.
It cracks me up because you've had that. I've had 9 years in France. I've done that. I've played football against Zidane, and now I'm back in Edinburgh. I'm a month married. I've got a new job. You know, it must feel like it was somebody else in a different
Different
world.
life. Well, yeah, well, exactly. That's it. Sometimes if I'm meeting someone today who doesn't know who I am, I say, "Oh yeah, what you been doing before?" Yeah, I'm a professional rugby player, and yeah, obviously, they say, what was it? I had a wall decorator in, and he's sort of telling me, "It's oh yeah, I know one of my mate's friends plays in France. I think he plays a pretty high level, and I could tell by the way he was talking to me, is like he just presumed I must have just played like whatever, just played a bit of
Pub
rugby in
league.
France." Yeah, and then he did name the guy, and then okay, I knew that was a pub league, and then well, yeah, I can't remember if I actually told. Oh, I don't think he would have known if I said I played for Toulon. He wouldn't have known what that meant, but yeah, there's certainly people that say, yeah, you tell them and it's surprise, very surprised with what I might have done before.
So you've got that experience. You've been a line-out leader. You've become an experienced player. I know that you're dabbling in coaching, but are you still a supporter? Do you still like watching the game? Would you be seen on the touchline watching an amateur game? Will you go and watch Scotland or Edinburgh and Glasgow?
Yeah, no, I certainly will. No, well, yeah, coaching obviously watching Mackie's games. I plan to watch Scotland games this Saturday, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, watch that Scotland Italy. Have I been down to Murrayfield? I don't think I've been to Murrayfield to watch a game yet. I think I did. I went to Murrayfield. I was on the pitch for the first time at the Eagles concert. Now that was quite tough. I remember being there, obviously unrelated to rugby, but then thinking, God, this is my time on the pitch, but I'm fucking watching the Eagles. God's sake. Yeah. But yeah, what were we saying?
Yeah. Can you watch it as a supporter, or are you picking apart the line
Yeah,
out? Are you thinking, oh, I can see he's got a
yeah,
little
no,
tail
there
there?
is. Yeah, I did think of that. I was kind of going to mention that before. Something I do miss, and is is that sort of I'll see. Yeah, exactly. I'll see that, and I want to take that. And I'm struggling with that in coaching. Is like trying to tell the guys to do something which yeah, I can see it's sort of obvious, but from the side, everything's easier from the sideline. But I want to just go in and just do it. I just want to go in and do it. So I do struggle a bit with that. And then I struggle. Yeah, I miss sort of the feeling of making a line break and then hearing the crowd, hearing the 10,000 at Raven Place screaming your name.
What I watch as a coach, there are a little bits so the line out, right? I've never jumped in a line out, never
Yeah,
been in a line out,
no,
but when the throw goes in, I'll go up on my tiptoes as if that's
yeah,
helping the jumper get to the peak of the jump. Or do
just
do
get the
you have little
fingertips on.
moments like that?
Yeah, yeah. Oh, certainly. Yeah, because I mean, I can tell. I know the way the ball's come out of his hands. I know if it's gonna hit the jumper or not. So yeah, you can. Well, there's a bit of a celebration, or you can see where the defense is standing, and you go, "Oh, why have you called that?" But no, certainly, yeah, play it, or you've got the sort of left and right. Someone's running around, and you're trying to dodge the defense for them. No, I think that'll always, and I think that's with all like rugby. Even my dad, I would say, like, not that he's probably coached me at mini rugby, but I'd say him watching rugby, I think he'd still be doing that. I think all rugby lovers are doing that to the TV, throwing their
Who
slippers at the TV when England score.
I know some people like that. When you reflect back, let's pick some names here. Who was a really good teammate? Not necessarily the best player, but who did you really love being teammate with?
There was a guy called Biarritz, yeah, probably unknown to you and your audience, a guy called Adam Knight, who was picked up by Biarritz he was serving the Otago and the Highlanders Academy in New Zealand. And then he was just a grafter, loved his video analysis, so then helped me in the lineouts, and he'd come and speak to me in the lineouts, and having maybe seen something, I would come and ask questions if he needed a bit of help. And then just worked bloody hard and was a tough bugger. he was probably one of the best teammates. I know you start naming people when you forget people. It's not fair. Yeah, I mean the older guys at Toulon that looked after me and gave me the experiences that I was able to. Sort of Drew Mitchell and Stephen Armitage in particular. They're very generous to me. A little academy player that couldn't do what they were doing day to day, but they would sort of take me along for the ride. But yeah, that's more of a sort of just a friend. That wasn't even so much teammate.
Who is the best storyteller? Who did you listen to?
What is going on here? Something's vibrating around. Sorry. Best storyteller. Me.
Like listening to yourself. I'm not gonna let you respond. I'm not gonna let you back that one up with anybody else. Who's the funniest? Who's your funniest teammate? Who did you love laughing at and being with?
Oh, for God's sake, this is tough. No, I mean there's loads of people that and I'll just why can't I think of anybody's names? I probably got up to no good with a guy called George Stokes, who I played in the academy with at Toulon. We had a lot of fun together. He's now playing. He's actually got like a Spanish. Has he? No, he's not played international. He lives in Spain. Valladolid. They won the double in Spain this year. He is George Stokes. He's English, but grew up in Spain. He was actually in the academy of Glasgow for a year, but he was a funny bagger and had a lot of fun together.
Good, I like that. Right, last one before I give you the one I told you about before. How well can Scotland do in the World Cup?
I think they can sit in. Well, I mean, they've shown their past performance the past couple of years. They're really building to hopefully to a peak. But it is a bloody tough pool that they find themselves in, isn't it? As usual, as ever. But there's no reason why not. They've obviously pushed beaten England. They've pushed All Blacks for a couple of years ago. They've beaten all the top teams. So why not on their day? They could certainly cause a few upsets.
Okay, well done. That was good media training. I like that. Geez, you sit on the fence there, my man. After all that, that's what you're giving me. Yeah, they'll be all right. Okay, right. So thank you. I've loved it. It's been brilliant to see you. It's good to see you looking so fit. Although you're one of those annoying buggers that's given up. I was hoping you were going to balloon, but you've actually got even fitter since you stopped playing rugby. So for you, Andy, happiness is.
Freedom of time, do what you want with your time and spend it with who you want to spend your time with.
Geez, you've got wise in your old age. I like that. I'm going to use that one. Andy, I've absolutely loved it. Edinburgh Accies are really lucky to have you there, imparting a bit of your knowledge and experience, and I'm sure the players will benefit from it. And hopefully, I'll see you very soon.
Yeah, no, certainly will. Maybe get a beer up down one day.
Nice. I like the sound of that. We've done that once before, but that's a story for another day.
Yeah. Volume 2.
Good man. Good to see you.
Right. Cheers, Bruce. Enjoyed.
Absolutely loved that. What a top man. So many stories to tell. Unique and definitely worth a listen. So if you've enjoyed it, you can catch us on Apple, Acast and Spotify. You can watch on Facebook and YouTube. Tell your friends, leave us a review. We're back. As you can see, the backdrop has changed. The location has changed, but it's still the same nonsense. And unfortunately, I've not got any fitter, but we're working on it. I look forward to seeing you all again very, very soon with some more guests. But in the meantime, my name is Bruce Aitchison from the Happiness Is podcast, and my happiness is egg-shaped. Hello, all Happiness Is Egg-shaped listeners and watchers. This is the Happiness Is podcast with me, your host, Bruce Aitchison, brought to you in association with Infinity Blue. They can look after you whether it is a checkup, teeth whitening, or a more complicated procedure. Give them a call, get in touch, and they will look after you to make sure that you keep that smile intact. Because after all, they know, we know, I know, you know, happiness is egg-shaped.